Last hour on the show before this, on the Dan Patrick Show, the Secretary of the Navy joined Dan. His name is Ray Mabus. Listen to this.
Why isn't it called Navy Army? It's the Army-Navy game.
You win first, you sing last. Navy wins more.
Yes.
After the game, you go to the losing team first and sing their alma mater, and then you go to the winning team. And so it's always Army, Navy.
Do you guys talk trash to each other?
Sure.
Like what?
You say stuff like, the last time Army beat Navy, the Army plebes that'll be out on the field were 3 years old.
Yeah.
They don't have any memory of this. They don't know how to beat Navy.
Wow. And again, that's Ray Mabus, the Secretary of the Navy, earlier on the Dan Patrick Show. I would say, as we welcome the Secretary of the Army to the Rich Eisen Show, Eric Fanning, shots fired, but that doesn't seem right here. Secretary Fanning, do you have any response to what Secretary Mabus said there?
Yeah, we put the team that fights and wins your nation's wars first.
Well done, sir, and welcome.
Nice. Amazing.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to be here. And just for the record, even I have seen Rudy.
Listen, I don't like sports movies. Here's why. I mean, here's why. I just don't think they're often realistic. Much like those of you who have taken up arms in defense of this country often don't think war movies are realistic. I can't get over the lack of realism in sports movies.
Yeah, I'm the worst one to watch a movie about Washington, D.C. with, because none of it's accurate.
Exactly.
Well, it used to not be accurate.
See, I think House of Cards is accurate, though.
We don't talk about that.
This is Eric Fanning again, the Secretary of the Army-Navy game, the Navy-Army game. Call it what you want. I've heard it both ways, as somebody said. It's tomorrow at M&T Bank Stadium, and Navy has won 14 consecutive games. Tell me why it will be different tomorrow.
There are a number of reasons. The main reason, though, the guest you had on an hour ago is my former boss. I know all of his secrets, and I'm not giving him another jersey this year. So we just had the Army Pep squad come through the building. Navy came yesterday. They sounded kind of tired and pretty quiet compared to what Army was today. But they're fired up, and the only comparison I can come up with to do the apples to apples is Temple. We beat Temple at the beginning of the season, and Navy had a pretty bad game against Temple last weekend. So the Army team is fired up.
What does this game truly mean for the players on the field, and what does it mean for the Army, for West Point?
Well, it's a number of things. First of all, what's great about this game is it is an intense rivalry. It goes back to 1890. They played for a couple of years, and they had to take a 5-year break because a general and an admiral almost had a duel after one of the early games. And it is storied and it is intense, but they know that when they leave the Naval Academy and they leave West Point, they're going to be fighting together and contributing together to the most important mission that we have in the country. But this is it. This game is it. One of my aides played for West Point when they did beat Navy, and he said, nobody asks me how we did that season. Nobody asks me if we went to a bowl game. They just say, did you beat Navy? This is what they'll remember.
And the emotion. We were talking before how it's a bucket list thing that I've never been to. None of us has ever been to that game. Can you describe what the emotion is like in that building?
So I just had the Army band in our marble granite hallways. You can imagine how loud and crazy that was as they wandered around the Pentagon. It is like that nonstop from sun up to sundown tomorrow. It is just crazy. It fills a stadium like very few games can, and I've never seen anything like it before. And that includes, a Michigan-Ohio State game, or it's the spirit of the two schools, the mission that these young men and women have signed up for when they leave the school and in the school, and then just the rivalry of the game. It's crazy. It's a lot of fun. Don't worry about Rudy. Go to one of these games.
I think I'm going to. Next year, we'll circle it on the calendar. Eric Fanning is the Secretary of the Army before the Army-Navy game or Navy-Army game. Call it what you may. It's tomorrow in Baltimore. And these are not your normal student athletes. They have their football duties, their scholarly duties, their service duties as well. What is an average day like for one of these players?
The average day, well, you said it. They almost all have athletics. They've got academics, and then they have all of their leadership military training. And the day is pretty much designed to be something you can't get through. So you have to prioritize and figure out what you want to do, which is a part of that leadership training. It is intense. It's pretty regimented, and it is nonstop from when they get up to when they go to bed each night.
You know, we had a Braves-Marlins game at Fort Bragg back in July. Are we going to see more things like this where we bring these two worlds together?
Absolutely. We're 40 plus years into an all-volunteer force. Any way that we can bring the public together with the military to keep that relationship strong is worth pursuing. And very few things can do that as well as athletics can. And I know soldiers get a lot out of those opportunities. Our cadets do at West Point. And if you talk to any of the athletes who play or train, the Knicks train up at West Point, they get a lot out of it too. And so it's definitely something we want to do more of.
It's a great idea. Also a great idea, the uniforms, 82nd Airborne, the World War II inspired uniforms that Army will be wearing tomorrow. Tell me about those. Those are
They did
cool.
they did a great job. The academies look to do things creatively each year in tribute to their branches with their uniforms and their helmets. And they were inspired to do that with the 82nd this year, and I think they knocked it out of the park.
So do you have a bet with the Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mavis?
We always will bet essentially at the coin costs, lean in, and he'll usually say, let's do a jersey. And so I told the Army squad that just came by, I said, I'm not giving that man another jersey. This has to be last year has to be the last year.
I mean, it's 14 in a row. He said, what, these guys were 3 years old or whatever it was. Can we go back to movies? Is there a war movie that you actually like? That sounds so awkward to ask.
Well, I think Saving Private Ryan is the classic easy go-to, but there are a lot of them that are actually pretty good. The older ones tend to be better. But, you asked about the bet with SecNav. I also bet with the Secretary of the Air Force. Now, Air Force beat both teams, but as we say, nobody cares about the Air Force in this. It's Army and Navy.
It's funny you say Saving Private Ryan. My dad, who served in Vietnam in the Army, says the exact same thing. He says, Saving Private Ryan, not to get too deep here, but the opening scene in Saving Private Ryan, he walked out of there and said, okay, that actually is real.
Yeah, I think most people say that who've seen that type of combat. And then just the storyline through it is also really poignant and speaks to a lot of vets.
Eric Fanning, it is the one bucket list game that I need to go to. It is the Army-Navy game, and it is tomorrow at M&T Bank Stadium where hopefully Army, I'm rooting for you guys now, Army will break the 14-game losing streak and beat Navy. Eric Fanning is the Secretary of the Army. Sir, we greatly appreciate you joining us. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
It's a cool one. I want to go.
That was great. I'd love
Definitely want to go.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.